So I test a lot of health tech, but when I first heard about this new kind of growing ecosystem that goes way beyond what a smartwatch can track, I had to try it. You see, unlike smartwatches, this claims to track biomarkers in your blood like glucose levels, it tracks your heart, and it even tracks what's in your air. The goal of this, of course, is to make actionable insights and suggestions to help you live a longer and healthier life. So like I said, I had to find out more. Like, can this actually replace my smartwatch? Is it worth it? Is it really as good as they claim to be? So I got everything in the Ultrahuman ecosystem, and I tested it for 2 years before making this video. Of course, not everything is perfect, but overall, I have to say, after using this ecosystem, I didn't realize how much smartwatches were actually missing. The Ultrahuman ecosystem has 3 main parts right now, and there's a 4th coming very soon. So it started off with the Ultrahuman Ring Air, a ring that is a lot like the Oura Ring. It tracks a lot of what a smartwatch tracks, pretty discreetly though, in a small compact form factor with a long battery life, and it gives you a detailed analysis of your heart, your sleep, your workouts, and it gives you an estimated age based on your vitals. Then we have the Ultrahuman Home. This Mac Mini looking device tracks your air quality, light and sound exposure, and it correlates that to your health. For example, if you didn't sleep well last night, maybe it's because your CO2 levels in your room went up to 1500 because you used a gas stove for dinner and your air conditioning turned off when the outside temperature cooled. That's a real example of something that I learned with this device. I ended up going into my settings in my thermostat and changing the fan settings. It was a simple fix that actually genuinely improved my sleep in just one night. And the third part of the ecosystem is a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM. It's a little sensor you put on the back of your arm that actually tracks your blood glucose levels. So in other words, you are able to detect the correlation between what you're eating and how you're actually feeling, when you're best equipped for a workout, when you should maybe walk a little bit, and overall what you should or should not be eating to improve your energy levels throughout the day, and also, again, live a healthier lifestyle. So the ecosystem is expanding as well, with a 4th thing coming soon that I'm not going to talk about much in this video, but essentially it is a blood test that you can take at your local clinic and have the data analyzed and integrated into your Ultrahuman app for even deeper insights. And by the way, full transparency as usual, this video is not sponsored by Ultrahuman. 2 years ago, they gave me early access to the Ring Air, but then I bought the 2 CGM patches with my own money, and I found a ton of reasons to buy this ecosystem, but also a few flaws that may be deal breakers for some, and of course, I'll be covering both pros and cons throughout this video. So that's the ecosystem, but it's worthless if they're not accurate or user-friendly. So let's start off by taking a deeper look at the Ring. So the Ring is pretty slim and compact, and after wearing it for 2 years, there definitely are some scratches on it, particularly on the inside where I do obviously most grabbing. So that's not surprising, but it's really, really comfortable to wear. I can sleep with it. I could do pretty much anything with it, except if it's really hot out and your hands are like a little swollen from, I don't know, maybe you're hiking in the desert or something, then you do notice the Ring is definitely a little tighter then. That's because your fingers just change size. But this Ring is able to track your heart rate, your blood oxygen levels. It's able to detect your temperature as well. Really cool insights on that I'll show you in a second. And it actually has an accelerometer too, so it can detect your movement. So these are all things that smartwatches already can do, but the battery life on this is usually lasting about 4 to 5 days for me. So looking at the app, there's a lot that I'm gonna dig into later in this video, but just kind of a high level summary, you've got your movement. Like I said, so walking around, it tracks your steps. You have your stress levels, you have your sleep tracking, you have your recovery, you have your sleep debt. So if it shows negative or it shows positive, then you have to sleep a little more tonight. If it's negative, you're ready to take on a harder workout than you might expect. You have brain waste clearance, which is based on how much deep sleep you have and how restful you were last night. You've got individual markers, so if you want to see specifics on what your temperature or your HRV was, or your heart rate, for example, all of that is tracked down here. So Ultrahuman does a pretty decent job of presenting the data in a convenient way, but actually taking action and making changes from that data requires more. Well, that's where today's sponsor, Amazon's Alexa Plus, comes in. While I'm making breakfast in the morning, I can now take advantage of the smarter, more conversational aspects of Alexa Plus. For example, asking my Echo Show 21 for information about if my home CO2 is increasing while I sleep, why is that, and how can I improve it? Watch this. Alexa, last night the CO2 levels in my room rose from 500 to 1100. I think that impacted my sleep, but what might cause the levels to go up overnight like that?
The rise in CO2 levels from 500 to 1100 ppm overnight is primarily due to your own respiration. As you breathe, you exhale carbon dioxide, which accumulates in a closed room. This effect is more pronounced when windows and doors are shut, limiting fresh air circulation.
And how can I improve that without opening a window? Like, it's kind of hot outside, I want to use my air conditioning. What could I do?
To reduce CO2 levels while using air conditioning, try these tips. Set your AC to 78 degrees Fahrenheit for optimal energy savings. Use a ceiling fan to boost air circulation. Keep interior doors open to allow air to flow freely. Consider adding air purifying plants like snake plants or peace lilies to your bedroom.
So as you can see, this is very different from the old voice assistant from Amazon. It's now much smarter, more conversational, more personalized, and can get things done for you. She can remember important contextual information when scheduling my calendar, manage your smart home, help booking reservations, ordering an Uber, and more. Here's another one. Alexa, how can I improve my heart rate variability?
To improve your heart rate variability, try these evidence-based strategies. Practice slow, deep breathing at 4 to 6 breaths per minute. This can increase HRV by 20 to 40%.
As you can tell, you no longer have to speak to her like you used to. She now understands more conversational speech and can actually perform agentic tasks for you. You can set personalized reminders like, when you see Mike next, remind him to take out the trash, please. She can even make routines for you, so perhaps if you want to improve your sleep, you could ask her to make a routine that dims the lights, changes the LEDs to a warmer hue, plays some relaxing music, and closes your roller shades. You can also pick up where you left off across devices around your house. And the good news is Alexa Plus Early Access is rolling out now, and you can request access at the link below. After early access, you can still get it for free if you have Amazon Prime, and it'll be $19.99 per month for non-Prime members. Now, back to the Ring. The first complaint I have with the Ultrahuman Ring is that the charger falls apart. I have two chargers. This happened exactly the same way to me twice. It just comes apart in the middle like that. It still works. I put it together and it charges, but I mean, I worry about having electronics that have open wire exposure like that. It's not going to be necessarily dangerous, I don't think, but I just don't want to accidentally start a fire or something like that. So that is a big complaint. And maybe it's worth upgrading to the better charger they have. I just think that's like such an obvious thing that needs to be fixed, Ultrahuman. Also, the battery life usually lasts about 4 or 5 days. Other rings out there will last 9 or 10 days. So that is good enough for me, but I wish it was a little bit better. Still significantly better than most smartwatches, and for people who don't track their sleep with a smartwatch, maybe you charge your Apple Watch or your Galaxy Watch next to your bed, and the Ring does all the tracking for you at night, which is pretty nice. Now, as far as the accuracy goes, I wore this along with 3 other rings, a Whoop strap, and the Garmin Epix Pro Gen 2 to see how they all compare. Now, keep in mind, none of these are medically verified reference devices, but I wanted to see how they all compare because a lot of them are generally very accurate devices. So, as you can see, I tracked these for 3 consecutive nights. I mean, I've worn all of these for many nights, but 3 consecutive nights to compare the actual data. And looking at the sleep score, it was very similar to all the others. So they use a very similar way to give you a metric for your sleep score. The heart rate variability was one that I thought was very interesting. I don't know if they calculate it slightly differently or they just present a different part of your HRV, whether that is average during a certain sleep stage. I'm not sure exactly what they do with HRV, but it's generally lower than Whoop, Aura, and it is similar to Garmin, but being lower than Whoop and Aura I thought was a little bit of a negative right here. The resting heart rate while sleeping was typically 1 or 2 beats per minute higher than the others, but the low heart rate, the total sleep time, and the efficiency were all very, very similar, and it's nice to see these because those are some data that we're missing from the Galaxy Ring, for example, and a lot of these devices don't have everything. Ultrahuman does have a lot of information in here. The REM, the deep sleep, the light sleep, and the awake time is really tough to validate without a PSG or EEG. They were somewhat similar to the others, but generally had a lot of variation in the deep sleep, which I found very interesting, and considering that's one of the most important cycles of your sleep, at least in determining how well recovered you are, that is kind of something I would like to see improved. And the blood oxygen, or SpO2, is always the highest out of these 3 nights when comparing to the other devices I was wearing. So accuracy, I mean, again, none of these are medically validated devices, but at least comparing to some other industry leaders, I think there is some room for improvement here. It's decent and it's good enough for a lot of general tracking. For example, the other day, I'm kind of coming off a cold right now, but 2 days ago, it told me, even kind of before I was getting symptoms, like, hey, you didn't recover well last night. You might have even been feverish in the middle of the night. This is something you want to keep an eye on. Maybe take it easy today and maybe avoid other people. It's kind of an inference I was able to gather from that. So it is still, in my opinion, good enough to give you general relative advice. But like I said, I wish it was a little bit more accurate. As far as tracking workouts goes, this, as most rings are, is not really meant to track your workouts. You can track workouts on here, but it's mostly based for like sleep and recovery and overall activity. So it'll know that you're working out. It'll see the increase in heart rate, and that will factor into tomorrow's recovery and readiness score and stuff like that. but it's not going to be used to see like, all right, what were my interval heart rates when I was doing sprints and stuff like that. So is this ring better than a smartwatch? Well, aside from answering calls and other display related stuff, smartwatches are going to be better for tracking workouts because they have GPS and more inputs and outputs than a ring has. But rings may be better for sleep, general health, and recovery tracking since they're always worn, they don't really move around as much, and the battery lasts longer, which means they're on your hand longer than a watch. So I like to wear a watch and a ring, but the ecosystem has so much more than just that. The next thing I want to talk about is the home. This is the center tab in the app, and as you can see, I can swipe through all the other days and it shows me the overall home score based on everything it's tracking. It gives you a little summary at the top of the temperature, the humidity and stuff like that. But you can see we have the CO2 levels, which is the one that I really pay the most attention to. That really makes a big difference. And it's something that a lot of people have way too high in their home. We have PM 2.5, so if that's high, then you'll need to get some type of like HEPA filter in your house. We've got the temperature, we've got noise, which is a really interesting thing. Again, if you have a lot of noise at night, maybe this could be detecting it. Maybe if your partner snores at night, this could also detect that. And this could really be impacting your sleep and overall just your well-being. Down here, we've got the 4 contributors is what they're calling them. So air quality, environmental control, light exposure, and UV. The UV, I have this in the corner of my bedroom, so it really doesn't get any direct light from windows, but maybe at your desk would be a great way to see this, and it shows you UVA, B, and C, which is kind of cool that it shows all 3 of those. The light exposure, as you can see, they kind of break that down into red, green, blue, and IR, and they can track throughout different times of the day. So maybe if you have really bluish lights you're using before bed, you can notice that here and say, maybe I should try some different light bulbs in my bedroom to improve my sleep. Environmental control, of course, temperature, humidity, noise, and the air quality really measures a lot. So CO, CO2, PM 1.0, 10, 2.5, volatile organics, and an overall air quality index. I think this is all set up really, really well. I love the way the home is set up, but my first complaint is that it is a different tab, which is fine, but there's not a lot of syndication of the data. If we go back to the Ring, there are different plugins, and this is the main tab that you'll be going to, but it doesn't really tie anything together like, hey, you had a low sleep score or a high breathing rate last night. Maybe it's because your CO2 level is high. It doesn't really connect those dots for you, and everything is going to be a little bit compartmentalized among this ecosystem. That said, there are a lot of little plugins, as they call them, you can add to this. So at the top, like blue light tolerant phase, this will tell you when you can have blue light or when you shouldn't based on your circadian rhythm, based on how you slept and things like that. Then you can go over to home and see how much blue light is there actually in your room based on the lights you have on or the windows or something like that. Again, not a whole lot of overlap there, but it's nice that that is available. Also, if we scroll down, of course, I mentioned this stuff before, but caffeine window is another one. So this is another cool plugin you can add into here. But again, it doesn't really tie everything together between this and the other, for example, the metabolism, which I'll talk about next. But it's still cool. You can have this, and it's going to be based on your sleep. It's going to say, hey, you can probably not drink a lot of caffeine first thing in the morning while you have the adenosine clearance window. Then after an hour, 2 hours, whatever, you're okay to drink coffee. You're going to feel better if you do that. And then later in the day, it'll say basically hey, this is kind of your last opportunity to have some caffeine without affecting your sleep. Of course, scrolling down, there are a lot of really cool insights. Your brain waste clearance, which is really based on deep sleep and other sleep-related metrics like that. But this is all really interesting stuff in my opinion. I love a lot of data, and they do present it in a really nice way here. But getting into that third component being the glucose monitor. Now, I don't have one on right now. I was buying them with my own money, as I said, and you have to buy a new one every 2 weeks, or they come in a 2-pack, so every month. And I went through, I think, 2 months of using it, maybe slightly longer, and I found that I actually learned a lot from that, but I just didn't really need to continue doing it. I feel like I looked at it less and less the longer I had it. So the way it works seems really intimidating. You have this little applicator, and on the back of your arm, you just push it against there. It makes a snapping sound. Like I said, it seems and looks really intimidating. You really barely feel it. It just feels like you poked your arm. It's really nothing. I mean, poked with your finger. It doesn't hurt or anything. And then you have this on your arm for about 2 weeks. Again, I didn't notice it. Wearing a t-shirt or anything didn't rub on it. I went swimming with it. It was totally fine in pretty much every environment. And I had no problem with that. But it connects to your phone, so you can tap it and pair it with NFC, and then just Bluetooth in the future. It'll communicate with your phone, and you'll be able to see your glucose levels in your body. So different foods that you eat will affect your glucose slightly differently. And this is going to be very personalized based on your own body. So this is something you could say, all right, maybe in the morning if I eat pancakes, it goes up a lot. I feel tired later. that's not a good breakfast. Or maybe you could say, if I have like oatmeal for breakfast or a high protein breakfast, instead I'll be much more level throughout the day. And it gives you these kind of guidelines of where you want to be, assuming you're non-diabetic. If you are diabetic, there's a separate app you'll be using to track for that. But for non-diabetic people, this is still a very valuable tool to manage what you're eating, to keep yourself within that range so you're energized all the time, and also it's a lot healthier for your metabolism. Of course, I'm not a doctor. Do your own research on this stuff before you're using it, but that's just based on my experience. So kind of wrapping this ecosystem up, a positive, the app is really solid. It continues to evolve. All these little plugins you can add here, I think, are super valuable, and they present the data in an interesting way. But in my opinion, the main thing that's missing that ties the whole ecosystem together would be that cross-referencing of data, being that you have the air quality, you have something in your body, and you have something on your hand at the same time. All that data is really valuable, but you kind of have to connect the dots on your own. So that's my take on the Ultrahuman ecosystem. I'm excited by how fast they're evolving, and I'm really excited to try out the little vision thing over on the right side, blood vision. That may be something I'll try out in the next couple weeks, but let me know in the comments down below what you think about this ecosystem, what needs to improve, and what others should probably copy from it. Thanks for watching. I'm Michael Bryan, and I'll see you in the next video.